In today's video, the National Security Advisor Mike Walz has been relieved of his duty, but it comes with a shocking twist. Also, Kamala Harris is speaking out, but immediately gets rejected by her own party, and CNN drops another bombshell poll on Democrats.
Sources are confirming to Fox News that National Security Advisor Mike Walz is out, as well as his deputy Alex Wong. Additional names are likely to come, we're told, and we expect to hear from the president on this soon.
Of course, this morning, the news that Mike Walz was out as National Security Advisor was really sending some shockwaves, not necessarily surprising ones, but structural ones. The role of National Security Advisor is a critical one. It is doing all the world events that we know about, Ukraine certainly leading them, but also all of the challenges and potential threats that we do not know about. It's a coordinator's job. So that position was set to be vacant. However, the president just within the last hour has announced that he's sending Mike Walz to be at least nominating him to be the ambassador to the United Nations, and perhaps even more importantly, appointing Secretary of State Marco Rubio to the role as acting National Security Advisor.
Okay, so just a few things up front for you. One, Mike Walz is great friends with President Trump. No wonder it took this long for this to happen. In the end, he gets a promotion. So I think that tells you the story there about that. Secondly, somebody needs to be held accountable when it comes to Signalgate. Now, I don't think this will be good enough for Democrats. We know that. But in the end, the good news is the people responsible for what happened is no longer serving in those positions. And number three, waiting until now to announce this, I think is very smart politically for President Trump, because he does not like it when mainstream media dictates what the news cycle is going to be. So by him doing this now, obviously this is going to expire over the next couple of days. This is not going to drag on.
After a long morning of reporting that Mike Walz had been fired, you could argue that he just got a promotion. So President Trump doesn't want him as the National Security Advisor anymore. Instead, he's putting him up for Senate confirmation as the U.S. ambassador to the UN. And Walz just said, "I'm deeply honored to continue my service to President Trump and our great nation." And if the president's issue with Walz was this now infamous Signal group chat that had the editor from The Atlantic on it, that's really not reflected in the president's post on this. He said, a very nice comment, he said that from his time in uniform and on the battlefield and in Congress as my national security advisor, Mike Walz has worked hard to put our nation's interests first. I know he will do the same in his new role.
Okay, well, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this story in the comment section below, because I think this represents a fundamental thing for me as it pertains to President Trump. Clearly, Mike Walz is great friends with him, which is why he got this promotion. He's got to be confirmed by Congress, by the way. But that doesn't mean I have to like Mike Walz. I support President Trump, but I'm not supporting Mike Walz. I don't think he should have a position in this administration. That's my own personal opinion. I think the way that he reacted to Signalgate was weak. I think his interviews on Fox News was an embarrassment to the president. But that's just me. Now, let's go to our next story. Kamala Harris made news once again for all the wrong reasons. Last night, she did a speech in an effort to galvanize the base, but she spent more time screaming about President Trump. Take a look.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you all. Thank you. And Dougie's here, too. Who saw that video from a couple of weeks ago? The one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake? Google it if you've not seen it. This country is ours. It doesn't belong to whoever is in the White House. It belongs to you. It belongs to us. It belongs to we the people.
And the story is not that Kamala Harris had something to say finally, and that it was as cringe as she's ever been. The story is that this is another Democrat coming out and trying to galvanize the base, trying to provide a unified message, trying to be a leader in this leaderless party. And once again, it has failed. And that's not my opinion. This opinion is coming from actual Democrats. Take a listen.
I think we folks need to stop looking at elected officials and to elected officials, and I think that people need to be the ones that are the bearer of the message. We all have one of these. We all have Twitter accounts. We all have Instagram accounts. If you are a person who is afraid right now and who doesn't know how you're going to buy the Christmas ornaments or the Christmas toys for your kids, then you give the message. You talk about it. Let's us take charge of the message of America and not just depend on Washington or whoever might be in our governor's office. Yeah. It's up to the people. We can't just shirk that duty and that responsibility away. This is our country to defend.
Democrats still reject even when people speak out and try to unify the base. And that's why I'm saying this story isn't even about Kamala Harris. It's more about Democrats and their continued struggle with finding a unified message. Now, here's what the former Speaker of the House, Mike McCarthy, had to say.
One of her greatest weaknesses is her ability to speak. And I don't know if she goes back on stage in a big crowd that it's going to help her, because no one's asking her to come out. She has waited trying to have people forget about her and try to resurrect an ability to maybe run for governor of California. And I just don't think this does it. She has forgotten. Her whole campaign was against President Trump, not for ideas. And what's her first step out? Trying to continue that. She hasn't gotten over the loss. She hasn't realized why she lost. And it's just the same thing you're seeing in the Democratic Party, an internal fight for leadership. Now, if you look at Bernie Sanders and AOC, they're going across the country building crowds. And that is really an example of probably where the Democratic Party goes. Not back to people who have lost with no new ideas and not the greatest strength of motivating people.
But even AOC and Bernie Sanders' strategy is flawed because their whole messaging is about oligarchy. Nobody wants to hear about that, and nobody even knows what it means. Now, let's go to the numbers because I think that tells the full story, because CNN got ahead of this. They actually did a poll asking American citizens if the election was held today and it was the same candidates, who would win. Take a listen.
We asked the question in our last CNN poll, who would be doing a better job as president? Guess who comes out on top? Within the margin of error, but comes out on top. This looks a lot like the election result, right? Trump 45%, 2 points ahead of Harris at 43%. 12% say they'd be doing about the same. But this is the key nugget here. It's not just about regretting that vote. It's literally saying who would be doing the better job right now. And Trump continues to score a higher percentage of the vote than Kamala Harris. This looks a heck of a lot like the election result. We have just seen this in poll after poll after poll. Despite the fact that Trump's favorable ratings aren't too hot to trot, when he's matched up against who he was matched up in 2024, he still, across the polls, scores a higher percentage than Kamala Harris.
Okay, so I don't think you're shocked by those numbers, but I do believe this question actually matters, and more for Democrats, really. Why does President Trump have such a loyal following? What is it about him that makes people so committed to his message and his agenda? Besides it obviously being rooted in common sense, I think that's a question that Democrats should be asking themselves, because it's exactly what they're going to need if they're ever going to compete again. And CNN followed up with another question. Who do Americans trust more, President Trump or Democrats?
So Kamala Harris obviously doesn't hold elected office right now, but Democrats in Congress sure do. So who do you trust more on the U.S. main problems, the main problems in the United States? Well, what do we have here? It's the same exact picture, folks. It's the same exact picture. When you match Donald Trump against his actual competition, Donald Trump comes out ahead. Look at this, 40% to congressional Democrats, 32%. Going to make a big circle here. But the bottom line is, when you look at Donald Trump in a vacuum, it's one thing. But when you actually match him up against folks in the real world, all of a sudden his numbers look considerably better. And when you match him up against his main competition at this point, Democrats in Congress, he is more trusted on the main problems facing the United States right now. In fact, it's not even close. It's an 8-point advantage, which in this politics, well, that's a wide ocean.
Well, it looks like that tells the story about where President Trump is and why people are very patient with him, and people should be, because we're only 100 days in. And I think the first year of any presidency, we should want the president to succeed and give him time to prove his case. Even if I disagreed with him, I believe that is a healthy mindset to have. Now, the White House did respond to the statement from Kamala Harris, and I think you'll find some entertainment in it. Take a look.
Well, I think it was a great reminder to the American people of just how blessed we all are that the leader sitting in the Oval Office today is President Donald Trump and not President Kamala Harris. It was a helpful reminder of just what a travesty and a tragedy that would have been. And the only thing Americans want to hear from Kamala Harris is an apology for joining Joe Biden, and remember, she was the border czar, joining Joe Biden in aiding and abetting the invasion of our country. And we're never going to stop talking about this, because what they did to this country is unforgivable. It is an eternal stain on the Democrat Party.
Thank you, everyone. And just to add on the Kamala Harris point, I think I speak for everyone at the White House. We encourage Kamala Harris to continue going out and do speaking engagements. You'll hear from the president at 11 o'clock. See you guys later.
And as you guys can hear, the confidence in Stephen Miller and the White House press secretary there is because they understand what the numbers are. They understand how Americans feel about President Trump and the Republican Party overall, but more importantly, how the country feels about Democrats. And it just continues to prove that President Trump is the one with leverage here and the patience and the support from the American people.
But look here, which party has a better plan? And this is the margin among registered voters. Look at this on immigration. The GOP crushes the Democrats. Look at that. That's a 19-point edge. My goodness gracious, you rarely ever see leads like that in politics these days. How about on the economy, where Donald Trump's numbers have been struggling a little bit? But even there, Republicans hold a 9-point lead. If Democrats think that at this particular point, just because Donald Trump is unpopular, that they're going to run away with it like a Heisman Trophy winner, that is not necessarily the case. These numbers should be a major wake-up call for Democrats. Despite Donald Trump's unpopularity in the polls, when you actually go up against him and you put Democrats' names against him, when you put Republicans as a whole up against him, Republicans and Donald Trump do considerably better. And that is why Democrats, in fact, cannot count their chickens just yet, because those eggs have not cracked at this particular moment.
I think you said the pivotal thing, the important thing, which is Democrats are not going to be running away with anything. They have to start thinking about what their message is going forward.
That's exactly right, because at this point, the Democratic message ain't selling a thing.
Now, the funny thing about the timing on this is that she's getting all this backlash. Democrats are rejecting what she had to say, but her running mate also came out and made some statements that Democrats rejected as well. And it was a statement about why he was chosen and continues to confirm why Democrats are out of touch. Take a listen.
I knew I was on the ticket. I would argue because we did a lot of amazing progressive things in Minnesota that improved people's lives. But I also was on the ticket, quite honestly, because I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, doing that I could put them at ease. I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this and vote for this. And you look across those swing states, with the exception of Minnesota, we didn't get enough.
So essentially, he's confirming that, they felt it was important to double down on identity politics, but clearly that didn't work out very well. Because if you're going to go down that road and I guess try to play that role, Tim Walz would be the last guy you would pick. I think you would agree with that, right? Now, here's Scott Jennings pretty much saying the same thing. Take a look.
When your signature move is jazz hands, you're not as up on the white guy code maybe as you think you are. Everything about this guy, from the choice, which was made, I think Shermichael's correct, which was made out of weakness all through his campaign appearances, and now in the aftermath, I just don't think there's ever been anybody in recent political history in over their head more than Tim Walz. And
did you meet Dan Quayle?
It is amazing to me. It is amazing to me. Well, he served a term, did he not?
And then lost a second.
It is amazing to me that Democrats elevated this guy and that he continues to believe that he is going to be a leader of this party in 2028. The problems that the Democrats have with middle America, white men, working class men, if this is the road we're going down, the code talker Tim Walz are only going to get worse for Democrats.
No question, it will continue to get worse. And guys, you think it's already gotten as worse as it can get, but for some reason, every week we are proven wrong. So there you go. Both Kamala Harris and Tim Walz making a fool of themselves. Now, this is another clip where another Democrat is making a fool of himself. This is Senator Van Hollen, the congressman who flew down to El Salvador to bring back the deported illegal alien. He is now threatening El Salvador with sanctions. Take a listen.
And finally, stay tuned, because Senator Kaine and I, along with Senator Schumer and others, are planning to also introduce sanctions legislation targeting President Bukele and all those who are part of his government conspiring with Donald Trump to deprive residents of the United States of their constitutional right.
Okay, so let's get this straight. Senator Van Hollen is, I guess, kind of moved away from Mr. Garcia now, and now he wants to attack the president of El Salvador. Got it. Now, let me tell you why this doesn't make any sense. One, are they really going to impose sanctions on El Salvador when It's an executive branch and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, who really has the relationship with El Salvador. So that's the first thing. And secondly, I think he's kind of backing away from Mr. Garcia and trying to frame the narrative a little differently because of the wife who continues to expose how dangerous Mr. Garcia is. And in fact, that's not Fox News saying that. It's MSDNC. Take a listen.
But look, I have read over what came out last night. This was written by his wife in 2020, and she's alleging really an incident of domestic violence where she says that he took her car keys, that he took her cell phone. She wanted to be able to make food for the children. He wouldn't let her, and the children essentially were locked in a room where she could hear them crying for a period of time. Certainly not something that is favorable on his character, but something that he hasn't had a chance to defend himself about, and something that she hasn't been able to explain since this happened in 2020. There was a previous order for protection that we knew about previously. It actually came after the 2020 incident, where she says that she just did that because she was trying to get a protection in case things escalated, but that it did not actually escalate.
Okay, so we have two things there. One, MSNBC is claiming this guy hasn't been able to defend himself, which is not true. But let's say we buy that, all right? But number two, he's got some character issues because his wife filed for a protection order, which we already know all this. The point being is, as you've seen in the clip from Senator Van Hollen, he wants to now attack the president and stop focusing so much on Mr. Garcia. I just find that to be interesting. And of course, he's not the only one attacking President Trump today and going viral for it. Here is, I still say, is the leader of the Democrats at this point, Jasmine Crockett. Take a listen.
As far as I'm concerned, you randomly kidnapping folk and you throwing them out of the country against their civil rights, against their constitutional rights. And frankly, how would they feel if some other country decided that they were going to just start throwing people randomly in our country? Like that is absolutely insane.
The fact that someone like Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is representing American citizens, it leads me to believe that anybody could really serve in Congress, even myself. I mean, I just think she's an embarrassment to Texas. Now, that's my own personal opinion because I just don't think she is actually part of the solution, right? It's all complaints, no solution, all hyperbole, no substance. And so what is she really offering? And I think we should all have that type of standard on both sides of the aisle here. But let's get serious. I want to get your guys' reaction in the comment section below to a couple of stories. One, Mike Walz getting a promotion instead of truly being fired and removed completely from the Trump administration. Let me know if you feel the same way. Secondly, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz both come out and make a fool of themselves, only to the following day CNN drop a complete bombshell on them with the polling that shows that whatever they're trying to sell, Americans are not wanting to buy. Let me know if you feel the same way about all of that. Just put your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, yesterday we posted a video about President Trump securing a major win. This comes as Ukraine has signed the mineral deal. However, there was still bad news where another federal judge has ruled against President Trump. If you want to hear that story and more from yesterday, all you have to do is click on it because it's coming up right now.